to Used to Sew, a podcast about sewing machines, sewing history, and sewing culture in the past and present. I am your producer and co-host Aradia, daughter of your main host, T.R. Kelly, who is here today to talk to you about gadgets and gizmos. What makes a useful tool? And what makes a gizmo? What is the difference between specialized tools and nonsensical nonsense? Questioning the entire framing of what the store-bought look is and why we think we want it. This episode's purpose is to get us to think about what we really need when it comes to our hobbies. Not just in the sense of what do you think you deserve and all that baggage, but really just what it is even possible to want. There are so many amazing specific specialized tools that exist, but there are also just plain silly gimmicks that pretend to be just as useful. And then there's the whole concept of what you need for the end result of your work to be. Store-bought? Why is that an appealing look? What about store-bought do you want? Could you recreate? Could you improve on? Understanding the purpose of tools through their results can help us untangle the mess of marketing that makes hobby acquisition so daunting.
We were sitting here talking off mic about collecting again, because our last episode about the lady in Nebraska who had this huge collection of sewing machines that's getting auctioned off. And a lot of them were just really common machines. A lot of them are ones I wouldn't even pay $5 for. It's just like, that's totally plastic disposable machine. Why did you buy that? And okay, so we don't know. Some people, they get into the habit of, or they get the hobby, they get the sewing machine bug, and they just buy every sewing machine they can get their hands on. I know several people like this. I wasn't quite that bad. I did kind of focus only on old black singers, but like I've said, there's millions made. So kind of tying in with how much of something do you need? How many sewing machines do you need? Well, what kind of sewing are you doing? You know, are you a commercial tailor? You probably want a commercial machine. Now, as we were watching in the video the other night, remember I kind of went when the guy said, "This is almost industrial," and he's pointing to a basic household singer. People. If you have ever seen or sewn on an industrial machine, you know what a ludicrous idea that even is. There's a picture I saw on a sewing machine group last year of somebody who was just as disgusted with this phony comparison. And they showed, okay, here's a Singer 201 motor, which is like, oh, the 201. Ah. And then here is a servo motor that hangs under the table for an industrial machine. And it's like, this thing weighs more than the household sewing machine, just the motor for the industrial.
Yeah, they can't be compared in that case.
So I think what folks are trying to say when they say, oh, this is almost an industrial, they're missing that middle category, which is commercial. So you've got your household machines, often called a domestic machine, not to be confused with the brand name domestic.
Very, very clear.
And then you've got your industrial machines, which an industrial machine is usually designed to do one thing. And do it fast, and do it all day long. Like in the video, the Marrow machine, the little sergers, even just the straight stitch machines. There's ones that do bar tacks. There's all these special machines. Those are industrial. They're part of a production line. What people are trying to say when it's, oh, this machine's really heavy duty, it's a commercial machine. It's a tailor's machine. Oh, okay. Yes, some of the more high performing domestic household machines can be used in a tailoring shop, which means a lot of heavy duty. Well, it's not the same thing over and over again, right?
Right.
You've got a tailor and alteration shop. Say you're part of a dry cleaner. Tailor and alteration shop. People are coming in, I need my button sew back on. Can you replace the zipper? Can you do this? So you want to have a machine that's very versatile. Can do a lot of stuff, but it can also do it all damn day long for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. It's your tool. So yeah, a lot of the older machines could possibly fit into that category. The one I've seen used that way the most is the FOF 130. You can even hook that up into a servo motor stand because it's a full rotary It can go fast. I think I got off on a weird tangent here. What were we talking about?
You did get off on a weird tangent. Our goal today was to talk about gadgets and gizmos, what you do and don't need when it comes to sewing machine extras, attachments, and accoutrements.
That's right. So that's where I got off on people thinking they need a super heavy duty industrial, whatever, sewing machine. If you're sewing for a living, you do need a commercial machine, or you need a domestic machine that can perform at that level. You probably don't need an industrial machine unless you're sewing outdoor gear. You need a walking foot, needle feed, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you might need that sewing machine, okay? What kind of sewing do you do? What do you need? Here's one that has just recently, in the past couple of years, come to my attention. The long arm quilting machine. This thing is big. It takes up, you need a sewing room. You can't just stash this in the dining room or expect your guests to sleep around it. It's a huge piece of machinery. And what it is the quilt sandwich, which is the top and the batting and the backing, all get rolled onto these rollers. And then the operator actually drives the free-floating machine head on these rails to create the quilting design. And this takes up a lot of, not to mention they're very expensive, takes up a lot of space, and it takes some practice to learn how to use it. Does the average quilter need this? Yay or nay? How many quilts a year do you make? Well, even the most avid quilter I know is usually working on several at a time. There's piecing and there's basting. There's all these steps.
Mm-hmm. Right. You want to be able to switch between steps. Yeah.
Hand quilting, or even machine quilting at a sit-down machine, a regular machine, is an undertaking, especially if you're doing a bed-size quilt, right? Not just a wall hanging or a baby quilt, which you could easily do at your home sewing machine. But if you're making a queen-size quilt or a king-size quilt, this long arm thing starts to look, that's going to save some time. It's going to turn out nice. Do you need to buy it? Oh, that's the question. Do you need to buy a long arm? Well, if you read quilting magazines or you go to quilt shop, if you're part of you're going to get bombarded with the advertisements for this. You need this. You need this. And it's easy to get sucked into thinking you need that if you've got the money and the space. But do you really need it? Or do you just want it? Or somewhere in the middle, and it's $2,500, $5,000. These things, they go up and up and up. I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
Some people I know have said, you know what? I'm just going to buy that machine, but then I'm going to do everybody else's quilts so they don't have to buy one, right? So people buy a long arm and make a business out of finishing other people's quilts. Now that can be asked as, yes, you need that machine. You have a great business idea there. Buy the machine, finish the basement, put the long arm down there, and put up your business card at the local quilt shop, long arm services. The people I know that do this, they are booked months in advance. So, yes. But if you're just going to use it for your own self, you might want to have it just like your husband wants to have that fancy new wood lathe or whatever his tool du jour is. Or your wife, or whatever. I'm old. I'm not always good on the gender thing, so just hear with me here. Do you need a serger? Now, this is one that when I first started working for Singer, the home serger was still kind of a new thing. In fact, I remember walking into an independent sewing machine store, and they had these big banners up. Have you serged today? Have you serged today? And they didn't, what is that? Surgery? No. What is that? And then, of course, it's this funny looking little machine that's got this radio antenna on top and a whole lot of threads. And what does it do? 1985, 86, what does it do? Well, the minute you see what it does, you want one.
It truly, you're like, I don't need no fancy gimme right now. It's a shut up and take my money sort of demo.
I worked for Singer for 6 days, And on the 7th day, I went home with a 14U52 3-thread serger, which I bought when I had my employee discount with my employee credit card, okay? So if you don't know what a serger is, and there might be some of our listeners who don't, it's a funny-looking little machine that you put the fabric in, and it cuts the fabric, stitches a seam, and binds the edge all in one swell foop, and it does it really fast. It's a machine borrowed from the industrial world, where it's called a marrow machine. That's a lot of people still call it a marrow machine, a marrow finish, a marrow edge. It does not replace a sewing machine, Mrs. Customer. You can think of a serger like your microwave is an adjunct to your stove. It does certain features very well, but you really don't want to replace your stove with it. This is like right from the Singer training stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's a very true thing. I mean, I have used a serger quite a bit, and there have been some projects where I could basically get away with using a serger for like 90% of the work.
Yeah.
Because you're, finishing edges and binding stuff together. Like basically, if you're trying to imagine what all that looks like look at the inside seam of your jeans.
Yes, or your T-shirt.
Yeah, or your T-shirt. Like that is an example of what serging looks like. There's a lot of ways to like change the bite size, change the stitch width, the number of threads you use. Like there are variations.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the basic idea. Just look at the inside of your clothes. That's the basic idea.
It makes that very neat enclosed seam.
And it's a bitch to pick out, let me tell you.
Oh, it's better. It's
easier to just cut it off.
Yeah, just cut the thing off and start over. So, learning to use a serger, I built my whole career there on selling really cool trade-ins and sergers once the good machines were gone, because they are really useful, especially if you're sewing for kids, if you're sewing knits, activewear, really useful. Different kinds of thread, put woolly nylon thread in a serger, and now you can sew spandex spike shorts that just look like store-bought. And there's the key.
It's really cool.
There's the key. Looks like store-bought. What did the long arm quilter do? It makes your quilt look store-bought. The serger makes your clothes look store-bought, because you don't want to have that. And this person came and was giving a machine seminar, and she was just forever ragging on, you don't want your clothes to have, or you don't want your projects to have that loving hands at home look. And she did not say that in a positive way.
Yeah.
The loving hands at home look. And that was kind of her catchphrase.
Disdainful.
Why you had to buy her serger. She was a Bernina rep. We need to buy this Burnett serger. And she had nothing good to say. She was one of the people that used the words touch and swear. And I'm thinking, lady, if you're trying to sell sergers, you should not be putting down your customers' sewing machines here. But she just had to be the representative for her brand, which had that reputation. And you don't want the loving hands at home look.
Oh,
Nowadays, people are doing visible mending. Yes, we do want the loving hands at home look. We don't want things to look store-bought necessarily. We want things to fit well and look nice. But if you've ever seen a garment that's been sewn entirely on a straight stitch machine with all kinds of bias tape finishes and French seams and other ways that things were handwork and really precise machine work, not zipping it through these industrial machines to make it look store-bought. So if you need or want a serger for various things, you got a use for it, you should buy it. But if you're just trying to make your clothes look store-bought, think about that. Learn how to do a French seam and enclose, go back to that old 1960 Singer sewing book that you've got on the shelf in your sewing room next to your wooden thread spools, and look in there and read about how to make custom finishes that aren't the loving hands at home look. The loving hands at home look is somebody who really doesn't know how to sew and doesn't fit things well. There is a sort of look that's like, okay, that's a good effort. Myself, I think if the clothes are doing what they're supposed to do, keeping you warm, dry, and covered up, that's great. I bought a shirt in Goodwill last year. St. Vinny's, one of those places. It was entirely sewn by hand.
Oh, wow.
Now, when I told the story about my little 192K machine that I could not figure out how to thread right, I wanted to make my own clothes so bad I sewed shirts by hand. So do you need a sewing machine? Do you need a long arm? Do you need a serger? No, you need a mouse rib and some sinew. Come on, let's get purist here.
Well, but then, okay, so then the other side of that is convenience and speed. Because some shit is very tedious. Like, for example, my favorite gizmo of all time, the buttonholer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to make buttonholes by hand. There's like a bazillion, million, jillion itsy bitsy little stitches all very precise and together. Or I could use this cool little clockwork mechanical gizmo that just like makes it. And it looks very much like industrial from the store. Like it's perfect every time because it comes on a template. And like it's just so freaking cool. And you can make buttons real, real fast with a buttonhole maker.
Let me tell you something even better. That buttonhole with that buttonhole maker, the template type we're talking about, is better than a store-bought button.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go.
Because it's stitched around. It's stitched around. You usually go around it twice. The store-bought buttonhole is made with bar tack machine, which you pull a thread and it's going to come apart. Just like the button's going to come off if you pull a thread, right? And your buttonholer machine, you can buy one on eBay for $25. You might score one in a thrift store, and you do have to make sure it's the one that'll work for your machine. But the idea is the thing isn't very big. It weighs a kilo. You can stash it away. The amount of work that it will save you over the cost and space is definitely a win. Buttonhole machine, yes, for the win. Not,
oh my God, so cool.
At rufflers, okay, all the weird little attachments.
Oh God, you just showed me a ruffler. Like the last time you were here, you showed me the ruffler, and like I have never seen such an act of wizardry in my life. Like it made, like I have spent so many hours pinning pleats.
Yes,
and then you just did this thing, and it made perfect pleats at whatever spacing you wanted, and then you were attaching a ribbon, and I was just like, how did someone imagine all the little metal parts moving together to make this happen? Like this is the coolest, and it's all mechanical. There's nothing mysterious or electronic about it. It's just a bunch of little bits of metal that move together and make perfect pleats, perfect ruffles.
Completely mechanical. And you show that to somebody how that, and when that attachment was invented, ruffles were on everything. And if the way I learned how to make ruffles was you can either zigzag over a piece of dental floss and pull that up, or you can run 2 lines of loose stitching and pull them up, and then you stitch your final stitching down the middle. You pull out the first one. What a PITA, people. Yeah, the ruffler, people, they want to buy their machines full dress with all the attachments, but they have no idea how to use any of them.
Yeah, so this is another thing.
The binder is another, like, how does this work? The tucker, the rolled hem things. This is like your machine goes forward. That's it. You don't have any zigzag. You don't have a serging stitch. You don't have all that stuff. How are you going to make your clothes look nice? Not only look nice, but here's another thing. Those old seam finishes, they wear really well.
Yeah.
Modern clothes, you pop the seams on and they've all been sewn with chain stitch, so it starts coming apart. That's not going to happen if your shirt's been put together with a felled seam with a lock stitch machine. It's not going to come apart. It's going to rot first. Gadget. This is even simpler. The rotary cutter.
Ooh, I want one of those.
The rotary cutter, for folks who don't know, it looks like a pizza cutter, but the wheel is a razor blade. It's a round razor blade. Sharps and hots. You got to be real careful with this one. And they come with all kinds of guards on them. But the idea is you just roll it along your fabric and it cuts. Now, I'm 62. I've got some arthritis in my hands, and I have to find just the right shears so I don't wreck my thumb any farther. Cutting with the rotary cutter, not only is it smooth, but if you're into quilting and strip piecing, and there's just things that you just can't do in modern quilting without a rotary cutter. So is it a gadget? It's not a gadget. It's a whole new tool. It's different. Again, it's like a serger. It's not going to replace your scissors, but it's going to speed up and accuratize some of your operations. So I would put the rotary cutter in. You don't need it until you need it. If you're doing a lot of that kind of work, then maybe you do need it. Maybe you just need a pair of good shears. Now, that's something everybody needs, pair of good shears.
Oh, yeah, that's necessary. I mean, like, the shears are to a sewing room what a knife is to a kitchen.
Good
right?
One. Good
like,
one. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're going to have a real hard time doing like most of the tasks without that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And good scissors make a difference. Like they don't destroy edges. They don't destroy your hands. They don't destroy your sense of frustration. You know, like good scissors are much like a knife. They just make the whole process. There's a lot less friction. It's a lot less friction.
How to buy good scissors. Look for scissors that are put together with a screw and a nut, not a rivet. The name brand says Ginger, of course, is awesome. Guggenheim is awesome. A quality scissors can be sharpened and used and passed down like a good quality chef knife, you know. But these things take care. Have your shears somewhere good. Don't drop them. Keep them in a holster even. I built holsters for mine. And then get a bunch of those $5.99 orange-handled things from, you know, not the thrift store.
Fiskars.
Yeah.
The Fiskars one.
Even the imitation Fiskars. And this is something not to buy in a thrift store because they're already going to be worn out and dead, unfortunately. Get yourself a couple pairs of these for paper and stuff like that, and keep them safe too. But don't be tempted to use your good scissors for anything but fabric. Make sure you have several cheap scissors laying around too. So cheap scissors, check. You got to have some of those. Mommy, where's the good scissors? No.
Yeah, and then there's the little tiny scissors for like being at the machine and snipping your threads. That's handy to have, not the giant shears just for thread snipping.
Oh, absolutely. And another thing, I'm going to snip right here. The little actual spring snippers to keep right at your machines. Thread nippers. This is something I learned about when I worked in a commercial shop. These are much faster than scissors, and you can wear them around your neck or hanging on the machine or whatever. So I always have a lot of those little nippers around. I got a pair of really good ones for $26, Italian ones, but I also have all these $3 Chinese ones that I don't mind if I lose them. So cutting tools, very important.
Now, what's a gizmo? What's an example of a really just useless kind of gizmo?
Oh, a thneed. If we go back to the Lorax.
Yeah.
What's a
Get our
sewing
Dr.
room
Seuss on. What's a thneed?
Oh, my gosh. Well, not to break anybody's bubble, but just about most quilters especially get just inundated with gizmos. There's a thing you can buy for like $6. It's basically a chopstick, but it's plastic. And this is for poking out corners. You know, it's like, wait, you don't need that, but it's packaged. It's packaged and it's in the quilt store. So people go in there and they just want to buy something. Rotary cutter needs to go with a mat. You roll your pizza cutter, don't roll it on your table. It has to go on a special mat. And then there's different kinds of rulers that go with that. Okay, so that's cool. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's another thing. They've just, like, you can get this kind of ruler that matches with this kind of cutter because there's a groove on the lip and this and that. Okay, well, these are all those incremental improvements that you have to decide. If you're just getting into the hobby, sure. But don't think you have to upgrade all your stuff every time a new thing comes out. Gosh, I wish I could think of some more. I'm going to have to go take another look through But every time I go in, I'm just like, who needs this? Who needs this? Who uses this?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm thinking of all the tools I have, because I have, like I said, in a previous episode, my sewing room is basically entirely the remains of 2 different stashes with a handful of other stashes thrown in.
A lot of inherited stuff. Yeah.
So I have a lot of different tools and gadgets and gizmos, but they're also the dregs of someone's used hoard. So they're actually all curated to be useful tools that I have managed to find a use for. Like I've got multiple shapes that I can iron stuff on.
Oh, yeah.
I've got multiple kinds of measuring tools. The one thing that I have found in my stuff that it feels like a gimmick is all the tracing paper. I've had very poor luck with tracing paper and all of that. It seems like a major gimmick to me. Like sometimes it works on some kinds of fabric, but not on most. And it's just like that feels like it's supposed to be better than it is in practice. And I've just managed without for so long that it has never really enticed me. Like I want it to work, but then it's more of a pain in the ass than just pinning and eyeballing like I've always done.
I think the problem here is your tracing paper is old.
That was my first hypothesis, was that maybe it's just a bit many decades oxidized at this point.
Yes. Because fresh tracing paper is a wonderful thing to work with. And it depends on, are you doing things that require it? Now, where I've always found tracing paper is very useful is making the darts at the bust line, hips. A lot of times I'll do thread tracing, just gently putting a line of really loose stitching where something needs to match up, or actually hand basting. But yeah, tracing paper, I learned how to use it in home ec in 7th grade, but it's not something that I myself use anymore. Other people might find a great use for it, but to me it's not a gadget, it's just not something I use. A lot of people would say, of all things, fray check is a gadget. What happened to clear nail polish?
I mean, I use neither, and I haven't had many problems. So.
Yeah. Fray check is one of those, if you're going to have a serger, you need to dab this stuff on the end of the cut thing so they don't unravel. Well, what I found that fray check, for those of you who don't know, it's a little clear liquid in a bottle. Flexible, washable, dryable. What I find it's most useful for is when you make your buttonhole, you dab fray check down the center before you cut it open. Then you'll never get all those threads and stuff. It'll always be a neat looking buttonhole. But, it's $5. Do you need it? Where are you going to put it? Don't let your kids sniff it. It'll get you wasted. Let's go back to what a sewing kit would look like. Like, what did people need to, like, needle women of the 1800s, right? What do you need? You need a needle, a thimble, thread, beeswax, and a measuring tool, and shears. That's all you need.
Yeah, I'm glad that I don't need a thimble because I do my sewing mainly, on a machine.
Yeah.
I have used a thimble a few times when I was doing like sewing through really difficult materials. And there's a whole skill to using a thimble.
Oh, yeah.
Like a pain in the ass to learn.
It has to fit right, and you have to get used to the feel of it and all that. I rarely use it, but when I'm sewing really heavy stuff, I will. Otherwise, I'll poke the needle through my finger.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it. Sometimes hand sewing is actually faster than machine sewing, because if you're going to have to...
It can be, yeah.
Sew it fast, rip it out. Sew it fast, rip it out.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I remember what I was thinking is can be a gimmick is interfacing in some cases. I find, like, you taught me when I was first sewing, because I was trying to work through like old fabric stores. You were like, yeah, you can just use fabric as interfacing.
Yes, you're completely
use the
right.
scraps from the project as like your collar stiffening interfacing. Not like I'm making a stuffed animal right now, and that obviously needed like actual interfacing because reasons. But yeah, that's one where I read the clothing instructions are like interfacing this, interfacing that. And like, I have had enough store-bought clothes that came apart to show the interfacing to know that I prefer using fabric as the interfacing. I see why you need the extra layer to make the collar stiffer than the shirt or whatever, but I'd rather it just be more of the same rather than this weird plasticky, scritchy stuff. It's unpleasant when the clothing falls apart and you have scritchy stuff falling out,
I partially agree with you there. The function of interfacing is to add strength and structure to certain parts of a garment. And sometimes self-fabric is the easiest, cheapest, best thing. But other times you need more shaping or more stiffness. And old interfacings, especially in tailoring, if you take apart a man's suit, and you'll see all the different layers of interfacing and how they structurally contribute to the shape of the suit. So for average clothes where you got to put a piece of interfacing in the front where the buttonholes are, yeah, you probably just got a piece of fabric that's the same weight or a little heavier. I do this myself all the time. There's a specific kind of waistband interfacing that I always really liked, because then it won't make your waistband roll over. You know how waistbands can sometimes fold?
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah.
It's made with these little ribs, so it won't do that. Iron-on interfacing was a fairly new thing, and that's one of the reasons we were selling presses to people, speaking of gadgets and gizmos, because putting a piece of iron-on interfacing on a collar in one swell whoop, wow, that's fun, you know, and it smells good, and there's like steam coming out. Wow, yeah, that's cool. Interfacing is optional, and that's another thing that is really hard to buy secondhand. You just really won't find it.
Yeah.
But what interfacing is, it's usually a fabric with no weave, so that it is stable. It doesn't stretch in any direction. So if you're using a self-fabric interfacing, you have to consider what is the structure of this piece of the garment. Does it need to not move? Is it a yoke piece, for example, that needs to anchor the whole thing? Is it a collar that I don't want to fold? So using fabric is totally legit. Just pick the right weight and structure about that. Another thing that people might think is a gimmick is pre-made bias tape. You can make your own bias tape, but why? It's easier to do it in thousands of yards at a time, right? And bias tape is one of those things that you can easily find in thrift stores.
Right.
There's tons of unopened packages of rickrack and bias tape and hem facing and all those little notions.
Truly.
Those are one of the things I have a weakness for collecting. They're small, they're colorful, and I do use them up. So tapes and trims and buttons, of course. I mean, you've got a jar of buttons all spread out here that somebody gave you. Back in the old days, people did not, they're saving their clothes. They cut the buttons and zippers off to use again. The clothes then become fabric for something else or rags or whatever. So you just didn't throw these notions away. So again, buying a jar of buttons in a thrift store for $5, you're set.
Truly, I got given 2 big jars of buttons from, again, Mike of Stagecoach Road Sewing Machine.
Yay!
He gave me 2 big jars of buttons, and every time I do a project where I need buttons, like currently the one I'm doing, I'm making a stuffed animal and I'm putting eyes on it. And I was like, I'm not going to buy eyes when I have 2 jars full of buttons. And so they're just spread out. And last night, Mom and I spent like probably a good 30 to 60 minutes like sorting through buttons and like picking them up and looking at them, sorting them by type. Like how many are metal, how many are plastic. You found some from like the 1930s that fit your collection. We found like multiple different uniform button sets.
National
from the National Forest Service. And then we also found one that had that Latin phrase on it that we couldn't even read until you took a picture and blew it up. And then we learned that like there's this Latin phrase that was something about justice and deeds. Like, I don't even remember what the phrase was.
Yeah, but it was like a common thing on blazer buttons, But
apparently it's a thing that there's these button, spectmur agendo.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was, let me look up what the phrase meant again. Let us be judged by our acts.
Yeah, it was part of a longer phrase. Yeah, let's be judged by our acts. It's really cool, but that's on a freaking button. Come on, this is culture.
Yeah, it was a whole set of buttons. It was like 6 buttons in 2 different sizes, and they had this crest and this phrase, and so it sent us down a whole rabbit hole. So like, just get a jar of buttons and I got big gnarly coat buttons. I got little tiny like undergarment buttons. Like I've got every white buttons, black buttons, every color under this, and plastic, metal, one set of shell buttons. Like you don't know what you have, and then you forget about it till the next time you open the jar up. And it's just a delightful little treasure hunt in your own home forever.
Oh, it really is.
And you never have to worry about buying the right buttons for a garment because you just pick the right buttons from the jar.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. Yeah. It's very fun.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sitting here looking at them. And it's just like, oh my God, there's some really awesome mid-century coat buttons that just make me think of beehive hairdos and cigarettes.
And it makes me want to embark on doing a big coat to justify putting the buttons onto an appropriate garment, or doing some weird period anachronistic steampunky kind of thing and just putting weird buttons all over it. It's all available.
Oh, that just reminded me of people that are that would find these buttons, and it's like, okay, they're going to find appropriate old fabric, actual pattern from the era, and they're going to sew it on that sewing machine.
Wow.
This is like living history stuff here. It's like, wow.
That's some nerdy stuff.
I'm going to sew on my 1960 Singer 500A Slant-O-Matic, the Rocketeer. And I'm going to use these, I'm going to put my cigarette in my ashtray right on the side here. My hair is up, like the Singer book says. I've powdered my fingers, and I'm ready to sew.
The house is clean, so that way you can sew with a clean conscience.
And I'm going to make this wonderful, amazing lime green synthetic sheath dress with an invisible zipper. And I'm going to use you could go to the thrift store and find all the right notions and stuff. It might take you a few trips, a few different stores, but you really could put together a sewing project like that was completely vintage. I think the idea of that's really fun.
That's an amazing level of like LARPing, basically.
Yeah, there's people there's women that do 1880s, 1890s kind of reenactment.
Right, yeah. Reenactment.
There's a couple of groups that do holiday caroling dressed in 1890s things, and one of the women actually sews a lot of their clothes for their costume stuff, and she does it on the correct machine and all. It's just really, I'm going to have to look that up, find that again.
Period technique and all that.
Yeah, and it just adds so much to the presentation. Hey, not only are these authentic patterns and fabric, I sewed it on an authentic sewing machine. So,
I mean, the vibes. The vibes.
If you were going to do a steampunk thing, there are so many sewing machines that would work for that have that look. You're not the curvy Singers. They're kind of the weird, more angular European machines and stuff. Yeah. So, so many people that there's just so many places that sewing machines can fit into your life. People, you need to sew.
Yeah, and there's so many ways for the collecting to manifest. And there's so many rabbit holes that are fun to fall down and have dangerous depths if you fall down too far. There's so many different mental pretzels and justifications we can put ourselves through to figure out what our correct collection is. We just encourage you to be intentional and be thrifty. Yeah. And above all, have fun. Have the thing bring you joy. Don't have it, just bring you angst or whatever. Like, have it bring you joy.
Being anxious. There's like stories of, I just have to hide this from my husband when I get home. It's like, oh gosh, that's not good. That's not good. Do you think that you have to hide something from your partner is one of those steps of addiction, really? I mean, people joke about it, but, don't let collecting and creativity become a burden. And it's okay to give things away. Don't get stuck into sunk cost fallacy, which is another reason to buy things at thrift stores. You didn't spend that much on it. If you don't make the thing, put it back.
Yeah.
Donate it back again.
Put it back.
Then you don't have as much emotional as well as financial investment. Oh, I have to sew that fabric. I paid $10 a yard for it. It's been sitting there 3 years. The anxiety's going up, right? Nah.
Yeah.
I'm tired of all my fabric that everybody gave me. I'm just going to donate it to Goodwill and get some more. It's okay to collect. It's not okay to keep, right? Collect stuff. I still go to thrift stores. I buy stuff. And if I haven't used it in a year, it goes back. And it's really cheaper to rent stuff for a while than to go out and buy new stuff.
renting your collection from the greater pool of secondhand things. I like that.
Exactly. You're just churning through stuff that's already there. It's if you're retail therapy and it's fun. I know people that go to thrift stores and still spend way too much money and get way too much stuff. Only you know where your line is. But the fact that knowing that there's a line, curate what you bring into your house. Don't just bring everything in. Don't bring in every sewing machine shaped thing. Don't bring in every piece of purple fabric. Whatever your thing is. Do you have space? Do you have money? Do you have the mental energy to deal with your wonderful collection of fabrics, sewing machines, thread?
And also, putting out a plug, avoid the bigger chains if you can.
Oh, please.
Right? Go to the smallest, most micro little thrifty things first. Just because,
you're one off.
Dollar miles and, I know there's the big places and you can find all the big places anywhere. But like the Humane Society thrift store, right? The little place that's open like in the back room of some other business for 3 hours on the weekends. Like, if you can find those places, they need your patronage way more than Goodwill. And there you have it, a series of loosely organized tangents around gadgets and gizmos. We strayed into the unexpected territory of period sewing projects, the care and keeping of shears, the difference between an industrial and a commercial grade machine, and delved into the question of why we think store-bought is a good look. I always love reframing my base assumptions about the world to discover something new right under my nose, and all the better if it helps me justify continuing to wear my own creations and visible mending instead of replacing with new or new-to-me garments. I really, really, really need to make sewing part of my weekly routine instead of just a weekend aspiration. As a reminder, we are unofficially sponsored by Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine, who do repairs and restorations. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can support us by sharing the podcast with your friends, and also with money, at patreon.com/used2sew. Thank you for listening to us here at Used to Sew. We always welcome your additions, corrections, and feedback in general. Please reach out to us via email at usedtosew@gmail.com. Used to Sew is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.